We will bring the 2015 Budget Committee to order. And essentially, that's my entire role for the moment, so I will now let Ingrid take over and explain the budget.
Excellent. So welcome. So tonight's our public hearing on the budget, and Mr. Cochran, the chair of the Budget Subcommittee, and I are going to walk you through what's in the 2016 budget request proposal and take any input and feedback from the vast public we have tonight. So we'll get started. I don't know if the committee wants to shift because it's going to show up here. So.
Yeah, it worked. There was a reason I sat here.
Start?
Sure.
Wait.
I need to read the mission. Okay. I'll only read the mission. The Norfolk Public Schools offers a safe, joyful, and challenging learning environment that meets the needs of our diverse students. Through school, family, and community partnerships, we provide an education that inspires lifelong learners and cultivates caring and productive citizens of our ever-changing world. The budget overview. I'd like to start off by saying I think this is a very fiscally conservative budget that we've come up with. Our aim was really to maintain level services, and by doing this, this would fund or allow the funding of a full-day kindergarten and eliminating bus fees for all the families. I assure you that these decisions have been made very carefully, which leads us to our next slide. This is essentially an outline of our approach, which occurred over the past several months by meeting with Dr. Alardi, her management team, and the Budget Subcommittee. First step is reviewing the assumptions, where the Budget Subcommittee looked at the budget assumptions that had been put in place to date. That passed back to Dr. Alardi and her leadership team to review the current critical needs within the district. Once they had reviewed and prioritized those, they brought them back to the Budget Subcommittee, where we looked at, by funding the full-day kindergarten and eliminating bus fees, what could we do to kind of offset those costs, and we had much discussion on that. The next step was really for the department heads, principals, and Dr. Alardi to get together and look at, okay, what types of general expenses do we need to add into the budget? Where can we make reductions to offset those adds? And they brought that back to the Budget Subcommittee again, where we essentially reviewed the preliminary budget in its entirety and to understand where we were coming out with an expectation to our target. And that leads us to where we are today for our budget public hearing. So we can go to the next slide. This slide, I think, is really, its main focus is to provide some perspective. What we have here is the last 7 years of what the fiscal budget was for the district. Back in '09, you can see it was just about $9.8 million, and in the current year at $10.8 million, which is about $1 million in growth. To give you some of that perspective, a flat budget is not 0% the same amount of money as the previous year. A flat budget is really about a 3% increase. And what that covers is cost of living expenses, contractual obligations that we have, as well as other items that increase in cost, heating costs, for example. So if we were to take that flat budget at 3% and do a compound annual growth for those 7 years, we would have ended up at about a 1.75% compound annual growth, or almost $1 million more than what our current budget request is. And even if we add in the FY16 budget request into that same formula, compound annual growth, it actually reduces that growth percentage by 1/4%. So this is really just some perspective on, the numbers look kind of big, but in general, it's a very fiscally responsible request that we're making.
Thanks, Tom. So during the same time period where we had declining revenues and the budget increases were flat, or actually there were a period of many years where there were reductions annually. During that same period of time, we also experienced significant decline in federal and state revenues to fund and offset the school budget. So since 2009, the federal grants that we received are down by about $332,000, and on the state side, they're down by about $30,000. And accompanying that, there was an increase in unfunded state mandates, so additional costs that districts had to absorb. Fingerprinting and background checks is relatively new, but there's a total cost to the district of about $6,000 to process fingerprint requests for all staff and volunteers. The adoption of the new ed evaluation system came with required trainings for all staff and administrators, as well as additional data management responsibilities. So in conjunction with the low revenues on the town side for supporting the school budget and the decline in state and federal grants, we had to absorb some additional significant costs. The impact of that is that during the period of time from 2009 to 2013, many classroom teaching positions were eliminated. We eliminated instructional support staff. The elementary foreign language program was cut during those years. Health education program was cut. Technology staff, library staff. There was a reduction in funds for curriculum materials, and during that period, the district also adopted transportation fees and band fees to help manage the operating costs. Last year, the town did fund a 4.25% increase for the school budget, so we've looked at the last couple of years as rebuilding years. In 2015, we were able to add back 1.5 developmental reading teachers, and that was between both H. Olive Day and Freeman Kennedy to provide additional instructional support for students. We added back 0.9 developmental math teachers, a 0.5 technology integration specialist. We've restored some of the cuts to the library program, and we also brought back a full-time physical education teacher. The restoration of the physical education teacher allowed us to partially restore the health education program that was lost. So students at both schools have an additional half a year where they have a second gym period every week, and within that gym program, we're bringing back the health and nutrition standards and addressing some of the health curriculum needs. 2016 budget request is $10,876,598. It reflects an increase of 4.27%. And as Paul mentioned, that this request will allow the district to maintain level service. There are no new positions being added in this current budget request. It allows us to meet contractual obligations for salary increases and allows us to bring forward those two initiatives that Paul talked about, eliminating transportation fees for all families and funding free universal full-day kindergarten for all children. I think it's critical. The reason that the full-day kindergarten program was the top priority universally among the district leadership team is the Massachusetts State Frameworks and Learning Standards are written currently based on a full-day kindergarten program. We also did pretty extensive research. We talked to 13 area communities to look at their plans for full-day kindergarten. Most communities in this area either offer full-day kindergarten free currently or in the process of planning a transition to free universal full-day kindergarten in the next few years. We know that full-day kindergarten has a very positive impact on student achievement, particularly in the early years. And while that benefit may fade out for the average student by the time they hit 3rd grade, we know that for selected populations, so for students that are learning English as a second language, for many of our special education students, for students with low income, we know that the benefits of early childhood full-day kindergarten may have a much longer lasting effect. We also know that students in full-day kindergarten have access to more individualized small group instruction. And another part that we think is really critical is that full-day kindergarten offers kids more opportunity for social skill development. So more playtime, more opportunity to explore things in greater depth and to develop those peer relationships and social skills that are critical for success in school. The curriculum can be delivered at a slower pace with less anxiety and more developmentally appropriate. And we also know that from the research, reports of parent satisfaction in full-day kindergarten is significantly higher. Also, I think it's important to note in our district, we've seen a pretty significant shift in the demand for full-day kindergarten. Last year, we only had 6 students district-wide enroll in the half-day program. We didn't have enough students to run a full half-day class. So students this year that enrolled for half-day are integrated into full-day classrooms, and they transition at noontime when kids go to lunch and they leave for the day. It's not an ideal model. We've also had a larger number of students and families seeking financial assistance so that we know that the tuition is a significant hardship on many families. Our recommended budget. We have 1 teacher retirement we're anticipating next year, so that will lead us to a savings of about $33,000. We will be replacing that position, but the $33,000 saving comes from the difference where a teacher exits on the pay scale and what we budget for incoming new employees. We have a reduction of about $25,000 in special education services, about $6,445 in special education materials. Our out-of-district tuition costs are down by $155,000. We have a student that will be leaving the district, aging out, and we have also reduced, and you'll see it later in this presentation, a collaborative placeholder that we had in the budget. We have taken out of the budget request in order to be able to fund the full-day kindergarten. District-wide expenses and expenses at the H. Olive Day School are also down slightly, $1,875 district-wide and about $150, with a total of reductions for $221,840. Budget additions. In red at the top are contractual obligations, so the cost of step lane changes and COLA, cost of living adjustments for teachers is $223,556. For all of their staff, we've budgeted a 2% cost of living increase, and that nets at $34,326. We also have, you'll see the 2.5 kindergarten teachers and 2.5 kindergarten assistants. These are not new positions. This is the portion of the kindergarten program that has previously been paid for by tuition. So by eliminating the tuition revenue, we have to move those salaries into the operating budget. So the additions to the budget are $517,699. On the expense side, we have some slight adjustments. Freeman Kennedy expenses are up about $8,000. Some of that reflects the increase in copier costs, paper costs, supplies. On the operation grounds, we've added some additional money for landscape to address some of the needs we have at both buildings. We need mulch for the playgrounds at both facilities. Transportation costs are up by $56,000. About $40,000 of that is reflective of the tuition revenue we typically bring in for transportation fees. So by eliminating transportation fees, we have to absorb that additional $40,000, and then we have some money built in because we are in the process of rebuilding and rebidding a new 3-year bus contract. So we know that that is going to lead to an increase in transportation costs. Special education transportation is up by close to $30,000. And then we have some additional software and technology maintenance needs. $24,000 for software, $12,000 for technology maintenance. That's server contracts, internet service, things like that. So the total for the expense side is $149,291. Class size projections. This is our class sizes currently. In the 2014-15 school year, our average class size ranges from about 19.3 to about 23.2. You can see the breakdown of enrollment and number of teachers at each grade level. In the coming year, we anticipate needing the exact same number of teachers and staff. Some of the positions are going to be moved and reallocated so that we can keep and maintain class sizes within that same range. This is just a sort of graphic illustration of how the school budget is allocated. The largest section there you see in blue is professional salaries. In red, right next to it, clerical salaries, and in green, other salaries. That would be custodial, food service, educational support staff. So you can see that the vast majority of the budget is driven by fixed costs with salaries. 10% is for services, that would be transportation and other service costs. 4% is for the supplies and expense side of the budget. We only have 1% for other expenses and 3% for tuition. Finally, this just sort of gives you a sense of what part of the total budget increase of 4.2.7% is accounted for by each of the following factors. So contractual staff salary obligations are about 2.6% of the increase. On the expense side overall, we're down by 0.84%. Transportation accounts for almost 5% or 50% of the increase, 0.50, and full-day kindergarten is 2.49%, with a total of 4.7% total budget increase. Again, as Paul mentioned, this is what we'd consider to be a fiscally conservative budget. There are many things that the district has been working on restoring that we were not able to bring forward in this request. We still are looking to add back the other 0.5 physical education teachers so that we can fully restore the health education program. We still are looking to bring back a 0.5 developmental math teacher for the Freeman Kennedy School. It would cost us 0.4 positions to restore the libraries at both buildings to full-time. 2.5 world language teachers is what would be required to bring back a full elementary foreign language program, and that's a cost of about $144,000. Looking for additional RTI student support for students that are struggling in any of the content areas at a cost of about $20,000. We would like to add $5,000 to the budget to provide additional training opportunities on the curriculum for our substitute teachers that we regularly utilize. We are looking at developing a copier, long-term copier replacement plan, and that would be about $40,000 annually. We would also like to eliminate the band and music fees to create greater access to that program, and that would be $24,000. As I mentioned before, in our special education savings, part of that is accounted for because we took a collaborative placement out of the budget, so we're a little bit lean there, but that's a cost of about $55,000. And then we reduced, we would like to add back $30,000 for an extraordinary maintenance contingency plan. So the total of expense requests is not included in the budget is $399,311. I think that the 2016 budget, as Paul mentioned, really reflects what are the critical needs of the district, allowing us to maintain current staffing and to continue to enhance the high-quality education that we're providing to students in Norfolk. To be fiscally responsible, we continue to look for ways to cost share and offset unexpected costs with Rentham, Plainville, and King Philip. So we have contracted out and shared the cost of ELL services, and we continue to develop professional development programming that serves all 3 districts and to cost share the expenses of that. And now we're ready for questions and public input. We can bring people back.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, both Paul and Ingrid, for that. Any further discussion among us?
We can discuss in the committee meeting.
Pardon?
We can discuss in the committee meeting too.
Sure. We can talk now, we can talk later, committee meeting, whatever you guys want to do.
Oh, you want to talk?
No, doesn't matter. So I guess we can.
We can end the public hearing and transition to the school committee meeting.
All right.
If there's no one that wishes to comment.
Any public comment on this?
Seeing none. Okay. Moving on. All right. So
No
we'll
comment or no public?
conclude that meeting. And because we're super efficient, we will immediately go to the regularly scheduled school meeting for this evening. Just in case you missed it, we'll read the mission statement one more time as we do for every meeting. Norfolk Public Schools offers a safe, joyful, and challenging learning environment that meets the need of our diverse students. Through school, family, and community partnerships, we provide an education that inspires lifelong learners and cultivates caring and productive citizens of our ever-changing world. Roll call.
Jeff Chalmers.
Jeff Curry?
Paul Cochran?
Mark Flaherty?
Thomas Doyle.
Ingrid Alardi?
I'll ask because it's on the sheet, public comment, but anybody? All right, continue that. Moving on to correspondence, I believe we have one donation we need to vote on. which is a check from Target, from their foundation, their Take Charge Education Foundation, which can be used for miscellaneous items. It is in the amount of $336.90. Do we have a motion on that?
So moved.
We have a second.
Second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. And circling back to it, so now, basic budget discussion. Anything we want to talk about? I know some of us, obviously, have already gone through the subcommittee, so I think we had some good idea of it, but the Jeffs, I don't think you guys were part of that, so I don't know if you guys had any
No, I think it was well
questions,
done. I think it was very well defined. I liked how it was presented.
Good.
Yes, well done.
Don't feel obligated.
All right, well, if there's no further discussion on that, we just need to vote on that, so we will move forward with presenting that as we just outlined there. That was just outlined, so I need a motion for that.
I make a motion that we approve the budget proposal as presented.
We have a second.
I second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right.
So our next step will be to go to the advisory committee.
What is the day of the advisory committee again?
We have not been scheduled
right.
yet. I'm expecting to hear from them shortly.
So presumably sometime in April, I would think is.
Yeah, they thought in the
likely.
next 3 weeks, sometime in the next 3
Okay.
weeks, but they're hoping.
All right, so next step of that, yeah, should be either by the end of March or beginning of April. This town meeting is May what?
Second Tuesday, is it, right? Second Tuesday in May? I think it's.
Anyway, we're
I don't
coming
know
up
the date.
onto it,
Yeah,
so this
sorry, you
needs to get
asking me.
going. It was just sort of a general rhetorical, whoever actually knew the
I
answer.
think it's the
so-
second Tuesday, and I believe that's the
'cause it's
10th
after the
or.
election.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. All right, so we've got that. And so then moving on to, do I have any documentation on this? Okay, do that, thank you. Okay, so another item we need to discuss and then enter into vote on is essentially an early retirement incentive plan that we want to consider. And probably the easiest thing, I can pass this along so everyone could read this.
They should have it in their packets.
I did not. So either you took my copy
Did
or
the
I'm
letter?
You have it right there.
No, that
That's-
was in this one.
Right behind that, those are stuck together.
Oh, never mind. All right, did everybody get a chance to read this? We'll start off with that first.
Yes.
Yes.
I think it's fairly self-explanatory. So maybe we'll do is we'll go ahead and see if we want to bring this to a vote now, and then we can obviously enter in discussions up from there. So do we have a vote to bring the retirement incentive plan forward?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second it.
All right, discussion.
So our goal with offering the early retirement incentive plan is to utilize available revenues this year to help offset some costs and hopefully generate some savings in next year's budget. As we saw tonight at the public hearing for the budget, we have a request going in at 4.27%. We think that really does meet the needs of the district. We have increased enrollment at the kindergarten level. We're currently budgeted for 6 kindergarten positions, but our current enrollment is indicating that we have to watch that very closely, and we may have to add a 7th position to kindergarten. We also have another grade level that has some higher numbers. So we're a little bit concerned about that, and we're hoping with the early retirement incentive, we might generate some additional savings that would mitigate that if we have to add additional positions back. And if we are fortunate and we do not have to, then we may be able to look at our budget requests and some of those items that we identified tonight that we weren't able to put into the budget, we may be able to relook at. So that's the goal with the early retirement incentive. The key terms of the incentive, it would be eligible and open to any teacher or administrator who's completed 10 or more years of service with the Norfolk Public Schools and who has not, who we are anticipating returning at this point as of September. They would need to notify us in a letter by April 30th, and we will make decisions based on the financial benefit to the district and determine who is eligible and who we award participation in the program to. Once teachers are notified that they've been accepted, they would need to sign a letter with us, and Roxanne would have those in the Human Resource Office that are indicating their intent to retire with an effective retirement date no later than August 31st. And individuals who are accepted into the plan would receive a one-time payment of $10,000, and that would be on or about July 11th. Then there's some just other additional information. If a teacher has already given formal notice of retirement to the Human Resource Office and begun the paperwork, they would be awarded a one-time payment of $1,500. Then there's just some contractual language that they are still entitled to access their sick leave buyback benefits, and that any employee accepted into the early retirement incentive has to recognize that that payment is non-pensionable and that they would not be eligible to file for unemployment or any additional benefits that way. So that's the general terms of the incentive.
Any further discussion on that? Yeah. No, I think it's a very nice idea. So we'll see where that goes with it, but 10 grand might buy a nice trip to Florida or something like that, so hopefully someone takes us up on it. So, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So the early retirement incentive, now that the committee's approved it, will be released to staff tomorrow. It'll go out to all staff in an email and then with hard copy to follow.
Very good.
Okay. My turn again. I have just two things to discuss tonight. One is just an informational article that I put in your packets just for your information, and it is about a study that was done comparing MCAS and PARCC assessments. I know this is a hot topic of the day, so I thought you might want to see this recent report that was released. The other item I had is a discussion around snow days. So we are in a fortunate position that our last day of school, given the 5 snow days that we have is right now on June 24th, which is a Wednesday. Right. Given the sort of unprecedented winter that we've had some conversation with the association about what would happen if we had an additional 2 days, and which would push the end of school into the following week. And my recommendation to the committee would be, if we have more than 2 snow days between now and Good Friday, that we consider making Good Friday a half day of school for students, so that we would keep school ending in that week and not go into the following week. The reason for that is that, a lot of families have already signed kids up for camps, summer programs start, it's hard for childcare. So we want to try, and the association also agreed that they really want to try to keep school ending within that week. I wouldn't recommend any changes to this current school calendar unless we had more than 2 days. If we had more than 2 days, the association's preference would be that we make the Good Friday a half day for students, which would allow us to end on Friday. So I just would like a vote. I mean,
We do have to vote on it?
Yeah, we would need a vote because we won't meet again before that day. Right. So that's why I wanted to talk about Good Friday. Good Friday is April 4th, so hopefully we won't have 3 snow days between now and then. But if we did, the school committee is not meeting again, so I would want you to vote to approve that, should that circumstance arise.
Can we just vote for it not to snow and make it easier?
That would be awesome. I would love that.
Everyone's life a lot better.
That would be my first preference if you have any pull there.
But that will happen if it snows again, but okay.
That's right.
Okay, no, that seems reasonable. Do we have a motion on that?
I'd like a motion to approve the use of Good Friday as a school day in the event of having more than 2 snow days before Good Friday.
Second of that?
Second.
Is it just to confirm, is that a half day or a full day?
It would be a half day
Half
for
day.
students and staff.
Seconded.
All right, any further discussion? And it is noted, Paul did a very nice job. Put that into words. It's a very long motion. All in favor?
Aye.
That's all I had for tonight.
All right, so moving on to the committee reports. King Philip?
We actually, the reason I asked that, Paul, is that we actually did that. We had it at King Family, and we made the motion to basically accept for a half day and 2 days. That was one of the days. There was another day, I can't remember what it was.
Okay.
But we because of the snow days. We also made, put under consideration, and I think we may or may not have discussed this at one of the meetings, I can't remember here, but in taking the February and April vacation and consolidating and having just March. So that's under consideration right now. So getting rid of the February vacation, getting rid of the April vacation, and just having the March. We don't have a March now.
Or just 1 week in March?
Just 1 week in March.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's under consideration. It's not, because of the contract, it's not something I believe we have to review with, with the union. It's already in the contract, where we have the ability of actually just making that change if we wanted to. But it's going to be something we're going to want to review with the union just for the purposes of keeping some amicable
change.
relationship.
And we've had some discussion. Dr. Zielinski did send an email to ask if any elementary districts were considering it, and I expressed my concern that we don't have totally different calendars, because for families that share, that would really be a hardship to have your elementary students have February and April vacation and the middle school have March. So I know they're exploring and getting some feedback on that, but we will have further conversation, because I think that would be, we would be concerned about that.
A lot to consider. Everyone is used to putting their holidays and their vacations based on that. So it's a lot to really swallow. We had a lot of information relative to the budget discussed, which if anyone had a chance, it's available for the G Drive. I'm happy to answer any questions about that, because it's just a lot of information. And then the only additional thing we basically discussed with was the DECA program, which has done amazing, and I'm lucky enough that I serve as one of the advisors. So that's really cool.
Okay. Thank you. See, next up, Public Policy Subcommittee.
We got 2 second readings. One is the student absence and excuses, and the other is student complaints and grievances. I don't think there were any changes.
I was going to say, are there any changes in either?
Just
Do you want to comment on the 2 words we were asked to look at?
sure, from last time. So, Paul, you had asked, I believe, last meeting to consider the language around serious illness under bullet 2 and major religious holidays under bullet 4, with the idea of looking to see what other districts had done.
Okay.
Also with the idea of potentially just eliminating that language. As we talked it through, though, we felt like it was good to have sort of some teeth in here, but also allows us some flexibility and some reasonability. Should somebody have a case that they want to make, they can, make a case that an illness is serious or that a holiday is major, rather than fall back on something of lesser weight. So we moved to keep that in there.
Okay.
The other district that we looked at hasn't yet updated its language, so it wasn't a helpful reference for us. So.
Rentham and Plainville didn't have policies posted on student absence, and King Philip has the old language, so that policy is probably going to be under review. As we highlighted at the last meeting, there's some additional new requirements based on the student discipline law that's on the second page of that, where principals have to notify families and reach out after students been out for 5 days and develop plans around improving attendance. So that's the new language, and it's absent from King Philip's policy, so it's clear that they haven't fully, that it's old language. It needs to be adjusted, so it wasn't as helpful.
Okay.
And then there was just one non-material change in the last sentence is the word "of" after principal should be just changed to "or." And that's it. Anything else?
Oh, okay, right. Is the student complaints and grievances, is that the same?
Under student.
There were no
absence,
changes or
No
requests
changes?
in that
Okay,
last
so
time.
None in that one.
just some, essentially one word in the other thing, and then clarification? Okay.
Forgot about that one.
It's okay. All right, so we'll have third readings on
Next
both
meeting?
of those next meeting then, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right, moving on, Budget Subcommittee, I don't know really what else we can say.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
Oh, boy.
Please, enlighten us.
Actually, there's nothing else to add. other than we have the advisory committee next month and town meeting in May. But you probably already said that, didn't you?
We did. We actually said that out loud as well, but that's fine. Very good. All right, moving back to Jeff for Technology Subcommittee.
We actually have nothing because our next meeting is Thursday.
Okay, then. Very good. All right, so we've got a couple renewals. Yeah, looks like two partner renewals. One is for the rec department, and then we also have one for the wellness committee. So I guess we'll take those individually, take motions on those. Anyone want to make a motion?
So moved.
Okay, so that's for the rec. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion on renewing Recreations Department's partnership? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, keep it going for the Wellness Committee. Need a motion?
So moved.
Need a second.
I'll second that as well.
Any further discussion? Take those no. All right, everyone in favor of the Wellness Committee partnership renewal?
Aye.
Unanimous both? We've got to do meeting minutes from our last meeting. Everything looked in order. I don't know if anyone had anything to add.
Make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from the last meeting?
So moved. Oh, wait. Jeez.
Gotcha.
It's a second we need.
Second. Yeah.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Next meeting, tentatively scheduled April 14th. Does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep, that works for me.
Yes.
Yep, fine with me as well. So, all right, so we're planning for April 14th. So as soon as we know about advisory, we'll have that. Okay. So that's it. We are going to? Okay. All right. So I move to go in executive session, discuss deployment of security personnel or devices, and not to reconvene in open session. We need a roll call for this.
Jeff Chalmers?
Jeff Curry, Paul Cochran.
Mark Flaherty.
Thomas Doyle.
Ingrid Alardi?
All right, this concludes this meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.